What is consciousness? And what does it mean to truly live life awake? Welcome to Clarity to Consciousness, a podcast where we transcend beyond stereotypes, embracing a deeper understanding. I'm your host, Kristen Griffiths, a fellow seeker on this path. Join me on a journey as we dive into conversations with experts, unraveling stigmas, and expanding our awareness to something profound. This is your invitation to open your mind with me as together we bring clarity to the fascinating complexities of human consciousness. Welcome to Clarity to Consciousness, where we seek to bring clarity to the complexities of human consciousness. I'm your host, Kristen Griffiths, and I'm thrilled to have you back for part 2 of our Conscious Divorce series. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the later stages of divorce, including what happens when you move out, handling time without your child, and navigating new relationships. But most importantly, we'll discuss healing and moving forward. I'll be sharing my own experiences with this process, but I'm so excited that we have Kimberly Sisk joining us again today. As I shared in our first episode, Kimberly is the author of Co-Parenting Tips You Must Have. She has decades of experience in family law and excels in coaching, mediating, and conflict resolution. Kimberly, thanks again for coming back and helping us bring light to consciousness and to these life experiences.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be back.
Aw, well, so excited to have you here. So let's start with moving out. We ended the last series talking about discussions of moving out, but now I want to actually start with moving out. So I'm curious if you have any personal stories from your experiences with clients about moving out of the house.
I do. There are a lot of scary stories, but I have a cute story. So my husband, ex-husband now, we had been married 10 years, and we wanted to be, friendly when we divorced. And so I had went to work, and when I came home, he told me, he said, "Okay, I've spent 3 hours doing this, and I hope that it'll be helpful." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Here's a list." And he made a list. He went through the entire house and made a list of the items that he would like, that he didn't think I would have a problem with. He made a list of the items that he thinks I would like, that he doesn't have a problem with me taking. And then he made a list of the items that he thinks we both would want and that we would have to talk about. And I thought that was so nice of him to do that, right? To be proactive like that. And so I looked at the list. I gave him his list. I said, "I agree with that. I agree with the list, for me to take. And all this stuff that's on the list that you think we're going to argue over, you can have it all." We're talking ladders. We're talking, things that are replaceable.
Yeah.
For me personally, we can always make money. We find ways, right? The universe is usually very abundant as long as you keep your space clear and open to it. So you can always make money. You can always replace material things. The things that I hold dear are non-replaceable things. Your sentimental things that you got from your great grandma, or time with your kids, time, not arguing over material things. That it's a ladder. If I need a ladder, I will go and get a ladder. And if I can't get a ladder, I'll borrow a ladder. And if I need a ladder and don't have a ladder, then it'll go on pause until I get one. It's not going to be the end of the world over those type of things. So to me, that was easy. That was just a nice way. Most of the move outs that I have done have been just agreed to. It's like, okay, what day are you going to move out? You go and you pack your stuff ahead of time, and then you generally move out. But there are a lot of horror stories that it doesn't go as smooth. I'm curious how your move out went, and how long have you been moved out? Like, I don't know if I caught how long you've been, in your own place.
So coming up in a couple months next month will be 2 years officially moved out of the home that we shared together. And I think another thing we could discuss is, like, how do you decide who moves out? And like, do you sell? I mean, some of that's probably a personal decision and a financial one. But for me, at least at first, it just felt like I wanted to get the process started, and I just felt some ownership in it, and felt that moving out was what was best for me and probably everybody else. So that's what I decided to do. But I do remember it being a very hard decision. And also with your comment about the stuff, thinking through for my child, I struggled with the thought of, I didn't want him to come home and feel like things of his were gone when he came to that house. Not his, but like just things that he was used to were gone. So I remember feeling very much like I want to leave it as much as I can untouched, so that he doesn't feel that his life is emptying out, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's how I felt. And then the process of moving out, I remember dreading the day, because it was a big change, and it was, definitive, and, very physical as well. Moving's kind of dreadful when it's not a when it's a happy situation. So the fact that it was this situation also added that. So yeah, I remember
Yeah.
on the way to the apartment crying on the way, but it was hard to decide what to keep and what to leave to some extent.
Of course. No, that's legitimate. Everything you're saying is a true feeling of trying to decide. As far as trying to decide who goes or who
Mm-hmm.
stays, sometimes it is just a matter of practicality, right? So, for example, if the home was already owned by somebody and you're
Yeah.
together, then it would be silly for, if the home's in one name, for that person to move out because they're still responsible for the mortgage. It also has to do with who can afford, to maintain the home, right? Now, apartments being as expensive, I don't know how expensive they are where you're at, but in Arizona, it is absolutely ridiculous. And so the rentals are actually more than mortgages almost at this point. And so the decision to move in, like to move out or to stay, it's kind of a combination of, if it's an apartment and you're both on the lease, is it a home? Are you both on the home? What are you doing with the home? But aside from the financial part of it, there are pluses and, there's cons and pros to moving in, or like to moving out or staying in. Okay. If you stay in, all the memories are there as well.
Yeah.
And so when you walk into the master bedroom and you go to bed, you're going into a room that you had been going into with a partner or a spouse for potentially many, many years. And you can repaint the room, you can move the room around, you can make it your own, but it's still going to be the room that you guys share.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of memories attached to being the one that stays. And it takes a little more time to heal if you're remaining in the home. Whereas if you're leaving the home, you're able to start a fresh start right off the bat. You don't have to
Right.
paint anything, you don't have to move the furniture. You have a new start just almost immediately, which is a different healing process than if you were
Mm-hmm.
to remain in the home. I personally have done both. I have
Mm.
remained in the home, and I have also been the one that has left. And if someone was to say which one was easier, I would say leaving is always easier. And if you think about, like, when you go to visit relatives in another state, or your best friend, whoever is leaving has an easier time because they're going to something. They're either
Yeah.
returning home, or they're going on a trip, or they're doing something new and different. The person remaining behind is just left with all their feelings.
Yeah.
And so it just makes me think, like when I would go to visit my mom, in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
every time I left, we're both just, crying But I had an easier time because I was one leaving. I was going back home, right? So
Yep.
I'm on a plane, I'm distracted, I'm busy, I'm traveling. My mom literally had to just say goodbye to me, wave at me, and then go and sit back in the living room and think about me leaving. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
I would choose always to be the one to look for the new adventure. I just think
Yeah.
it makes it you're a little distracted. It gives you the opportunity to choose what you want instead of being left with what you guys chose.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that's just a personal preference. And sometimes financially, you can't be the one that leaves. You have to be the one that stays, especially if you have children in the school district. You need the room. It's what you can afford, and that's okay. I would just recommend again trying to make it your own as soon as possible. Even if it's just moving the furniture. I remember it's still in the house where my ex moved out because the house was in my name, and so the day he moved out, everything was kind of the same. And then I remember about 10 o'clock at night, I called my son, who was an adult, and I said, "Hey," I said, "can you come over?" He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I just want to move some things." He's like, "It's 10 o'clock at night." I said, "I know, it just needs to get moved." So we moved the whole back room into my front room, and it just felt
Mm.
great. Like, it
Oh,
just felt
good.
great doing that one thing. I don't recommend doing it late at night like that. Um, but I wasn't sleeping anyway, so
Yeah, fair
so I
enough.
was
You
like,
need to
"Just
like
get it done."
yeah, it's like you need to shake up that energy a little bit, I think.
Mhm.
And I can
Yes.
understand being left with the void. I think that could be
Great way
hard
to
too.
put it.
And I think if I'm being honest, the idea of that scared me a little bit, which is
Mhm.
probably another reason why I decided to leave. But I can totally understand how it could
Yeah.
be more difficult to stay.
I love the way you put that because it's like a void.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, once you're moved, and oh, by the way, if you have kids, do you have any recommendations for how it's done? I assume made some assumptions, or maybe I researched it. I can't actually remember, but I assumed it was better to do when the child is not home. But they don't see it. But I don't know. Do you have any guidance there?
Um, I think it depends honestly on the children, right?
Mm,
So, for example, if you imagine if you're at school and you come home and the whole house is all changed, it's kind of
yeah,
shocking.
yeah.
But if the kids know, and again, the parents are not in conflict, and they're like, "Yeah, mommy's getting a new apartment. You're going to have your own bedroom there," and you take them ahead of time saying, "Here's the apartment. Here's what your bedroom
Hmm.
is. We're going to do moving on Saturday. Do you want to be there to help, or do you prefer to maybe go to grandma's for the day?"
Yeah.
And then you give them the option, and they may be like, "No, I don't want to move." Take them to grandma's. If they're like, "No, I like to pack my own stuff or pack up some stuff," let them decide what gets to stay at the house and what gets to go to the new apartment. Let them have a say in what stuff goes where, right? Of course, if they're 3, it's different. But if they're, 7, 8, 9, if they want to bring one stuffy that stays at your house and one stuffy that
Hmm.
stays at, dad's house, let them have that choice. And
Yeah.
since we're talking about that, a big thing that I have seen over the last 34 years, and and it boggles my mind, okay? So parents are like, "Well, I bought them these shoes. So the shoes stay here." So they will buy them the shoes. Then the kid has to wear this pair of rickety, falling apart tennis shoes to go back to the other parent's house. And then the other parent
Mm.
sends them back in these rickety shoes because they're like, "Well, I paid for the tennis shoes. They're $100. I'm not letting them take them over there. They'll get destroyed. They'll keep them. They won't send them back." That is going to be a problem for the children. Okay.
Yeah.
The adults are making it a problem for the kids. They
Mhm.
absolutely, if you buy the kid tennis shoes, let the kids use their tennis shoes. If they want to take it to dad's house and they forget to bring their tennis shoes back, they'll get them the next time. It is not the
Yeah.
end of the world. Um, I understand it is expensive. If you have a problem with that, don't buy them $100 shoes. Buy them $50 shoes. Then it's not
Yeah.
an issue. Like,
Right,
why
right,
create
right,
an
right.
issue where you don't need to, right? Gaming
Mhm.
systems, those are a huge thing, right?
Yep.
They're like $400 or $500. They're like, I bought him an Xbox system. I don't want him to take it over to his, the other parent's house, even if he's there for 3 weeks in the summer. Don't buy him an Xbox set. Buy it for the
Mm-hmm.
family, right? So at
Mm-hmm.
Christmas time, instead of giving the child a $400 or $500 gift of an Xbox, buy it for the family because it's the family's. It stays at the home, and buy the child something else, like a little handheld Game Boy for $100 that he can
Yeah.
take back and forth. But don't give the child something that you are not going to let him take back and forth between the homes. It is an easy fix, an easy solve. Just don't do it. Because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise the children, they don't understand. They're like, no, I would love to have my Xbox. I was right in the middle of the game, but no, I can't bring it. But if it's a family
Mm-hmm.
Xbox, they understand. Of course, you can't bring a family Xbox. That belongs to the family. But if
Yeah.
it's theirs and they can't bring it, that is when you're going to start causing trauma.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's true. I think you just feel bad in general, and maybe this was just something that came up that triggered that guilt and sadness a little bit.
Um, can I venture into something? And if I'm
Mm-hmm.
venturing too far, you can
Yeah.
just say, you know what, Kimberly, too far.
I'm
But
typically an open book, but yes, please. So please venture.
well, so I find, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that parents sometimes they use the children, right? Because it's more acceptable if we say, "Oh, I'm worried about the child," or "I'm doing this because of Joey," when in reality, it has nothing to do with the children. Really, it has more to do with the acceptance that we are now a single parent, with the acceptance that, gosh, his GI Joe is over at his dad's house and I just moved. I don't have the money to buy him one and I feel guilty about this. And then you start, beating yourself up as a human or as a mom or, should I have done something different? It's a lot of internal conflict, but the
Yeah.
way we make it okay is we say, oh, I was feeling guilty because I couldn't give that to my son. It
Mm-hmm.
really has nothing to do with the children. It's really our way of trying to reconcile and figure out what we're doing and who we are. And, you know, there's a lot going on when you divorce. So much.
Yeah.
Your subconscious is in overdrive. And so I would just recommend that anytime you start to feel guilty as a parent, and be like, oh, this for my child or that for my child, I would really take a little bit of a deeper dive and say, is this really to do with the child? Or is this something for me that I have to do some more inner work on and healing because my child's fine? Literally children, they're so resilient. They just want to know you love them, that you're there for them, and they pretty much will
Mm-hmm.
go with anything. But when you look at the kid and you're like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad you don't have your G.I. Joe here. He's now going to feel bad. But if you're just like, well, if you were at school, you wouldn't have it either. You can get it when you go back to your dad's. They're fine.
Yeah.
They will
Yeah.
accept that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would just, suggest a deeper dive when you start to feel guilty as a parent. Is it truly about the child? Or is it truly yourself, subconscious trying to make excuses or justify things versus just accepting growth and
Yeah.
pain? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And if I crossed any boundaries, I apologize. But it's really about, if we're doing the consciousness, we
Right.
really want to grow, right? We want to
Yes.
grow and we want to learn. And none of that is without pain, right? And I'm not even, this is not even, everything that I'm saying has been from personal experience, plus decades upon decades of helping other people, go through the same process.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm right or wrong or anything. This is just merely a conversation. And if it resonates with somebody, then that's fantastic. And if it doesn't, then,
Mm-hmm.
as adults, we just move on and find something else that does.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And this is exactly why I had you here. So please, no, it's all welcome. And I know that there's I totally admit that there's things that I struggled with and needed to accept, and certainly guilt for not being able to give my son not having a family unit for my son anymore was definitely one of them. One of the emotional challenges that I certainly had dealt with, and I'm sure a lot of parents deal with that as well. And speaking of emotional challenges, the other one is spending time away from your children. So that's a big deal. I remember one of the first nights that I was alone in my house or in my apartment. And this is fresh off of having a young child and being so used to having to constantly be doing something to take care of him or to take care of the house. And I sat down and I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, like I feel guilty because another guilty thing, because it's like I have no one to take care of right now. And this feels awkward. And that brought up emotions for me too. I'm not there to take care of my son. And so I think there's a lot of emotional challenges with that. I would love to hear from your perspective how to work through that.
You know, I don't know if I mean, obviously we can go and say, you got to do grounding. You should do inner work. You should join groups. You should do counseling. You should seek out resources if you need help.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe, though, that it is individual, right? And I can say from my own experience, I had one of the most conscious awareness things occur to me in my darkest moments.
Yeah.
I had been with a gentleman for it was 3 years, and my two older children. One had went to Colorado and took my little grandbaby who was 4. She went there to be, with her husband and to move there. My other son, who was 28 at the time or so, he ended up going to Florida. And my children have always lived within like 10 minutes of me. So I am now in a different town with my fiance. My children have just both moved out of state. I have no close friends because I'm in a whole new town. And my fiance just decided he no longer wanted to be in the relationship. And you can't,
Wow.
and again, you can't, if somebody doesn't want to be in it, you can't force it. And so I ended up getting an apartment. And like you, I was crying the entire time when I was moving into the apartment. I was
Mm-hmm.
just sad. And I ended up getting sick. And I am in this apartment and I am sick with the flu. And I realized I didn't have anybody to go and get me crackers, to get me 7 Up, to even check on me. Like my phone was not ringing. Um, I didn't have any close friends I was so alone. And it honestly was the darkest moment, those few days of my entire life, almost to the point of where I even contemplate, I'm like, why am I even here?
Yeah.
I have no purpose here. Like my kids are gone. Like I don't know anyone. I'm sick. I was at the darkest moment. So you're just laying there, feeling sorry for yourself. And I don't think that it's a bad thing. Take a few days, cry it out, feel sorry for yourself. It's not a bad thing, right? There's a picture of a warrior, and it says something to the effect of that when she falls on her knees, it doesn't mean it's over. It means it's just beginning, because she will get back up, right? And so I did get over my sickness. And I remember and this is embarrassing. I can't believe I'm sharing it with everybody. And actually, you may end up, well, since you're in a different state, maybe nobody will be like, oh, I was there. I wondered what was going on. So I would go to Fry's, which is a grocery store. And every time I would go to Fry's, I would get the same thing. I'd get one little chicken leg and I would get a little bit of coleslaw. And it was literally forcing myself to eat. I just did not want to eat. I just was so just sad, depressed, I didn't even want to eat, but I was forcing myself because I knew I had to. Well, this little old lady behind the deli counter, okay, she was heavy set, right? But she just had that grandma face on her.
Yeah.
And I said, I was like, hi, it's like just a leg and a small coleslaw. And she's like, honey child, you need to eat more than that. You are too skinny. And I said, I'm trying. I said, I'm just hanging in there. I said, but thank you. Right. And then she looked at me. She goes, what's wrong, honey? Floodgates.
Mm,
I
yeah.
started bawling in the middle of the deli section at this big
Yeah.
grocery store. She comes around, she
Mhm.
starts hugging me, which of course makes
Aw.
you cry more, right? So I'm
Right.
literally
Yeah.
blubbering. People are walking all by thinking like, "What
Aw.
the heck?" I mean, it was horrifying, horrifying, but I couldn't stop it. And it was such a release, right? Like somebody cared. Somebody reached out and they cared, and I took it as a sign from the angels because she actually did remind me of my grandma. And I took it as a sign from heaven that it's going to be okay. And honestly, from that moment forward, I go back and visit her once a week, and my life greatly improved from that day forward. And so
Wow.
I think the emotional part, the loneliness, it's not going to be pleasant. It's not going to be fun, but you have to go through it to get, you got to go through
Yeah.
to get out, right? Um, and you can do it. You absolutely can do it. You
Yeah.
just have to have faith over fear.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm crying too. Just listening to that story, I mean, I can relate because actually it was this year I had the flu and then I had strep throat, which was really, really hard for me this year. And both times I felt like I was on my deathbed. I could barely eat. I know
Yeah.
no one was coming with food. I was like, what? How am I going to do this? I remember those
Yeah.
moments, Kimberly. Yeah, yeah, and just to hear the outpouring of love, and that's from a
Oh,
total stranger. That just
it was, it
warms
was,
me to
it
hear.
does. I mean,
Yeah,
and I still, when I went back the following week, I thought, there's going to be people here that may remember, and I don't
yeah,
care. We're human. We have weak moments.
yep.
And um, I am just so, so grateful, that she came into my life, and
Mm,
she was a godsend,
that's
you know.
beautiful.
So
Yeah,
yeah. So no. So you're going to have
Mhm.
loneliness. You just have to have faith that you will get through it.
You will get through it. Yeah,
The only way
that's
out
so,
is through. That was the saying that I was trying to remember. And I actually have that
yeah.
tattooed on my body because
Wow.
I do. There's no
Uh-huh.
probably TMI, but
No.
it's just a reminder, that the only way out is through because we have a tendency to stay on this side because we're scared, right? It's
Yep.
like, no, that's going to be too painful. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off. How long do you stand and stare at a Band-Aid before ripping it off? Because it's going to hurt, but as soon as you do it, you're on the other side.
Yep.
And so you just have to go through it. You have to, the only way out is through. And I wanted to remind myself that I can do hard things. You can do hard things. Everybody can do hard things. And we can survive and we can get on the other side of it. But we have to trust ourselves. We have to be open to the universe. And you just have to look for those little nuggets out there that people, because you will have angels. There will be people that will come to you when you least expect it. Um,
Mhm.
no, I mean, there's a ton of stories with like angels and guidance and so forth, but just know that you will get through it. No matter how lonely it gets, you will get through it because you are here for a purpose. We all are. And had things went the other way that I was contemplating when I was sick as a dog and so lonely and so depressed, I would not be sitting here with wonderful Kristen right now. And hopefully sharing my story with
Yeah.
that will resonate with other people and hopefully help them get through the hard times and have faith in themselves.
That's beautiful, Kim. Ugh. That's beautiful, Kim. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's why we do this, right?
Yes.
We take the pain that we experienced and we turn it into something positive. So thank you
Yes.
for sharing that.
Yes. No.
And we
No
could
judging
probably,
people. Like no judging.
yes,
I don't judge, so I trust that others will not judge. They will, because honestly, I would love for people to share when people would share those stories with me of what they're going through.
yeah,
That's really what helped me grow and heal and move forward, because you're not alone.
You're not alone.
I mean, you're not alone. You may feel like you're alone, but truly, we're never really alone.
Right. Well, we could probably wrap it up here, but I have so many other questions. There's some really important things that happen after that, which is starting new relationships. And that can look like you yourself or getting into a new relationship and how to handle it respectively for the other person and your children, or vice versa. The other person's getting into a new relationship, and that could potentially bring on a lot of feelings and emotions for you, regardless of what side you're on. Do you have any advice for starting a new relationship or being on the receiving end of your ex starting a new relationship?
Yes. So, I'll do it in a nutshell. I highly, highly recommend not starting a new relationship until you are at least 6 months out of a divorce done. I'm not saying the divorce has been filed and you've been living on your own for 6 months. I mean, the divorce is finalized and you've been 6 months past the decree date. And the reason I recommend that is because we all change, right? Who you are at the beginning of your marriage, you're different than who you are in the middle of your marriage. You are different, are the relationship. Who you are at the beginning of a divorce is completely different than who you are on the day you sign divorce papers. It is definitely different than who you are 6 months after the divorce is final. And you need time to find out who you are. You need to try new things, not to change who you are, but to find out who you are now that you are no longer, in a relationship that partly defines you. And so you need that space. And I'm a firm believer that the right people will come to your space if you have that space clear, prep, and ready. If the soil is good, you're going to attract nice people, right? But if the soil is kind of weedy, right? Who is going to hop into a weedy soil, right? It's going to be people that are a little shady, right?
Yep.
And that's the last thing you need, right? You do not need a string of relationships. You do not need to jump into something that is not healthy for you, and or your children. And it doesn't mean you can't date. You can absolutely go on dates. You can enjoy other people. You can do it at the time you don't have the children, right? Children become the priority, and you can date and do things anytime when you don't have the children, but do not get serious. Do not see the same person repeatedly every other week or whatever your time schedule is. Even if they're really, really awesome, take it slow. If you're like, oh my gosh, they're so great, I don't want to lose them because everyone else in the fish pond is like all really scary. If it's meant to be, it's still gonna be meant to be. They're not gonna go anywhere, right? And if they do go somewhere, you just saved yourself a whole lot of heartache, right? I mean, if they are not trustworthy, to take things slow. And you have to keep an eye on them at all times, or you have to keep them occupied, or you can't trust them to be a week on their own. Is that really what you want in your world? Like in your children's world? Like, this is a whole new start for you. You can make so many new decisions and, and better decisions. So I highly recommend not dating. I mean, like serious dating until 6 months out of a final divorce, because there's just so many emotions and I mean, even if you want the divorce, on the day it's actually granted, there's still emotions.
Yeah.
Because it is final. It's something that is absolutely final. And so people underestimate, they're like, oh, I can't wait for this day. Like, it's got to come. Like, I'm so excited. It's going to happen tomorrow. And the day comes, you're like, this is so, exciting. But, once the lights go down and it's nighttime and you're laying there, you're like, oh, wow, I'm actually divorced. Like that chapter's ended. So you have to allow space to be able to process things. And that means not having too much in your space to distract you from processing, because otherwise you're not going to heal. You're not going to be fully ready for a good relationship. So, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard, but it's absolutely doable. As far as when the other person starts dating, again, you have no control over that. I personally my children's dad, he ended up getting married when my kids were probably 7 and 4 ballpark, around that age. I loved it. Why? Because it's another woman helping take care of my kids. Women are just naturally a little more
Yeah.
nurturing, right? So if the kid falls
Mhm.
down and skins their knee, the dad's like, "Oh, you're fine, get up." The mom's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And then it's
Yeah.
like, "Okay, you're fine, get up." Um, she would do things that the father wouldn't do. Like, she remembers their birthdays. She would get them really cool gifts. She remembers Christmas. She would, like, do special things that guys generally don't do or haven't been or had to do, right? So
Mhm.
she didn't like me at all,
Oh,
and that's
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to be best friends with someone in my children's life. As long as they are good to my children, I will respect them and appreciate them. They can hate me, they cannot like me, that's okay. You're good to my kids, I'm gonna like
Mhm.
you and I'm gonna respect you because you're good to my kids when I'm not there. If I can't be there for my kids and my kids are with their dad and you and something happens, in fact, my daughter, when she had my grandbaby, I was not able to be in Ohio at the time, and her stepmom was actually there with her. And I am so grateful for that. I absolutely am so thankful that my daughter had somebody in that room with her, holding her hand, helping her through it. It was a horrible, horrible birth. And
Oh.
I thank God every day that she was there for her. And so again, she does not like me, and that's okay. I'm not, I don't reach out, I don't try to be friends. I respect her from a distance, but I have a lot of gratitude and a lot of respect for the fact of what she does for my children. I mean, she really just thank God for her because I don't
Yeah.
believe that it would have been the same growing up for them had they been just with their dad. I mean, he was a good dad. I mean, he took them fishing, did all that kind of stuff. But women are just nurturers, and
Mm.
by nature, and so
Yeah.
I'm thankful. So I that's for me personally. Now, if the other person is had a case where a mother was chasing one of these stepchildren around the table with a knife, that's kind of a problem.
Yep. Kind of
So
a problem.
kind of a problem.
Yes.
So if it's obviously in that situation, you could not respect, the next person, and you would hope that the father, or the mother, if she's got a crazy, new person, um, would want to protect their children, right? And that honestly, that could probably be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll stay positive, and that the people that the next
Right.
person, that they're choosing to be around our children are good people.
Yep.
Um, and I definitely wouldn't like, you know, it's not horrible that kids are around, people, like new partners and stuff. Some people get really upset because they're like, well, I don't want him to have, a woman this week and another woman next week. And that really comes down to, I guess, like your belief system, right?
Mhm.
And it opens a door to just say, look, we all have different belief systems. Some people believe that it's okay to date around and have multiple partners. Some people believe that it's better to have one partner. And it's not that one's right and one's wrong, right? Because that means we're being judgmental. And this child doesn't belong to just one of us. We have to share. And it's helping the child, empowering the child to realize that just because people do things differently doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, right? It's
Yeah.
helping the child to not be judgmental growing up and being able to say, you know what? I saw this with my dad, saw this with my mom. For me, this is what I would like to do, right? This is the best choice for me. It's empowering the children to learn because if I were to ask you, Kristen, do you do things or purposely don't do things that your parents did while you were growing up?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I
Mhm.
I I I think about things that I didn't care for, and I try to do them differently. Absolutely.
Yes. And sometimes we do things that we liked our parents that did. Like my grandma,
Yeah.
there's certain things she did, and to this day I do them, right? So
Yeah.
kids, again, they're
Mhm.
not dumb. We underestimate them, but they are not dumb.
Mhm.
And I don't know where to throw this in, but I know we're going to be wrapping up. But I wanted to just throw in about empowering the kids.
Yeah.
And because it's just my favorite thing is to empower the kids when the parents. So, for example, if the child's at the other parent's house and the parent says something, or their new partner says, "Oh, your mom or your dad suck," or they won't, pay for this, so now you can't go and take swim lessons, which absolutely they should not be doing. But it happens, right? And we
Right.
can't control the other person. And of course, you can have a decree that says they're not supposed to talk bad about the person, and you can take them back into court, and you can, spend all this money. The suggestion that I have is to empower the children. Okay. You can have the child say respectfully, they're not allowed to talk back to the parent. They're not allowed to be, raise their voice or be disrespectful, but respectfully, hey, that's an adult topic. I'm going to go and color in my room, or I'm going to go ride my bike, or I'm going to go play my Game Boy, or whatever it is they're going to go do, go read. They can absolutely say to an adult, ooh, that's an adult conversation. That's adult stuff. I'm a kid. I'm out of here. They can absolutely say that. And they say it respectfully. No adult can get mad at that, right? And if they do get mad at that, that's a whole different conversation, right? And the kid
Yeah.
can be a parent and say, no, that's adult stuff. I'm just a kid. That's adult stuff. I'm just a kid, right? And when they are allowed to say that, and you tell them, and it's not when you're at your dad's house, this is what you do. It's, hey, you're a kid. I want you to remain a kid. So this is what I want to do to empower you. If your dad, if your grandma, if anybody that is an adult in front of you starts talking about adult stuff, you can say, ooh, adult conversation, I'm out of here. You can do it to me. If I say something, you can say that to me, and I'm not going to get mad at you. And if I do get mad, you call me out on it. You say, hey, you said you weren't going to get mad. Like, you
Mhm.
can do that respectfully because I want you to have a kid. I want you to enjoy your childhood. That is an adult stuff,
Yeah. I love
and
that.
that is just really
Mhm.
empowering the kids. And that's going to go a lot longer, like a longer
Yeah.
way than going through a court system, trying to
Sure.
enforce a parent to be quiet or not say bad things. Um, and the kids can use that throughout their whole life,
Yeah.
even in school, even, in a job.
Teaching them
So,
young with
yes,
those
to
things.
be empowered. Yes, I love empowering children.
I do too. I love empowering children as well.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I have
Oh,
a
thanks
few
for
last
having me.
questions. Yes,
Okay.
yes. No, I have a few last questions. Don't go yet. I have a few last
Okay.
questions that I wanted to chat through before you go. These are reflecting on our conversations today, but also ones I ask all my guests. So, thinking about what we chatted about today, what is one key takeaway you would like our listeners to remember about consciousness and the work you're doing?
Um, I would tell them, I would want them to remember that the way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And just to give themselves grace and others grace. Try not to have knee jerk reactions and assume just because if somebody called me a name, I could assume that he meant it or she meant it. Or I could be like, I'm a little confused. I don't understand why that happened. Can you give me more detail about it? Like, what is it that upset you? Is it me? Is it something that I did? Is it in my control? Like, I just like to dive deeper, and that allows me to give people more grace. Because usually, if people are lashing out, it's because there's something deeper going on. And if I know what is deeper going on, then maybe I can help them, or they can help themselves. So I would just take it one step at a time. Make sure to remember that the only way out is through. Don't be afraid. Faith over fear. And that they can do hard things.
Well said. And if someone's just starting their journey to a deeper understanding of consciousness, what advice would you offer them?
Meditation. Meditation, grounding. Grounding is really underrated. There is something about taking your shoes off, being outside, even if it's just dirt, grass. There is something about the earth's energy that just sucks all of the negative vibes or, in your system. It just going outside barefoot and just, having your arms spread out and looking up at the sun or the moon and just taking deep breaths because you're alive for a reason. And you have to quiet your mind in order to be able to hear what is being said in the whispers. And when you're really just, consumed with yourself and thinking about, oh, this and, pour me this, or, oh, I got to do this, or I'm scared about this. And all you're doing is just doing you're not hearing anything. You're not even open to hearing anything. You literally have to embrace the quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm inspired to get outside and stick my feet in the grass after all these conversations. Yes, absolutely.
You should.
And my final question today is, in your opinion, what does it mean to live life consciously?
Taking deep breaths and again, giving grace, looking for the deeper meaning of what's really going on. It's too easy to just assume the surface, actions, behaviors, words. Consciously is taking a deeper dive and saying, what's really going on in the subconscious that made the person consciously want to do this or say this to me? What, to me, consciousness is being aware of the whole situation instead of the moment.
Beautiful. And I wanted to add my own perspective to just because this life situation is something that I have experience with, and I find that what helped me is setting intentions for how I wanted the outcomes to be and pictured those best scenarios for all of the situations in this divorce process, including a new person coming into my ex-husband's life. I think that those situations and thinking about what would you dream of being the best scenario to be and picturing that really helps live your life with intention and not just by default, which is something my friend Rudy Ricksteins would say. And I also think that it helps guide those outcomes. And then you can start to look for where the universe has brought that to you. And I know that that's guided me through some of those challenging times. So I just wanted to add that to what you had shared.
I love that. And I'm so glad you shared that about the intentions because I think the way that we're different, which I love, is that you probably are a little more patient than I am. I am not a very patient person. I've had to work to learn to be a patient person, and I think maybe you're by nature patient. Because I love.
I don't know. I think I'm patient today.
Well, I love the intention part because that is an area that I probably could work a lot more on is setting intentions. For me personally, I am rolling pretty fast most of the days. And that would go back to slowing down and doing the intentions and setting it. And as you're going to go and walk in the grass, with your bare feet, I am going to start practicing making slower intentions, like taking that moment in the morning and setting intentions for my day. And so that is my takeaway from this, conversation from you It was like a little gift from heaven. Thank you. And so
Thank you.
I'm going to listen to that and take that because I heard it. I was like, okay, she is speaking directly to me right now, maybe to the other listeners as well, but I hear you. And so yes,
Mm.
I'm gonna take that to heart right now. Thank you.
No, well, thank you. You're a gift from heaven. I loved our work
Oh,
together. I think you're amazing.
I think you're
And
amazing, and I love what you're doing.
thank you so much. Can you just remind everybody how people can stay in touch with you and access all the wonderful things that you bring into the world?
Yes, I am Kimberly Sisk, Sisk. You can find me on LinkedIn. And I work for Colburn, Hensey and Milletta. It's a prominent law firm in Phoenix, Arizona. We do criminal and family law. I also am going to have up, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, co-parenting downanddirty.com. It'll have links to my book. I have another book that'll be coming out soon. Just inspirational, and while the name says, down and dirty, it's not meant to be down and dirty towards your partner. It's just straight up, straight shooting, like no sugarcoating, just information of how to get to where you want to go faster. So,
All right. Well, we'll be sure to link all of those wonderful resources in the show notes. Thank you again, Kimberly, for your wisdom.
Kristen, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for inviting me. And thanks for having me a second time. This is awesome.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening. In our final episode, which will be next of this Conscious Divorce series, we'll focus more on the spiritual side of this life event. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Clarity to Consciousness. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Please check out the show notes on how to connect with us. And as always, if you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love and be very grateful to have you subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on any of the platforms. Looking forward to having you back again. Bye for now. Before we part ways, I want to express my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for tuning in. Your curiosity and openness make this journey all the more meaningful. As we navigate the realms of consciousness together, please follow our podcast for more captivating conversations. If you enjoyed what you heard, why not share the love, rate and review on your favorite platform, and help us reach more seekers on this enlightening path. And hey, the conversation doesn't end here. Dive into the show notes for additional insights, resources, and details about today's discussion. Your journey to clarity continues beyond this episode. Thank you so much for being a part of the Clarity to Consciousness community. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the boundless possibilities of your consciousness. Take care and much love to you all.